This was such a busy CanJam that we barely got to talk, which is wild. Like, I saw you for like 10 seconds during the whole show.
The only time I actually saw you was when I went to harass you while you were at the B&K booth, and that's about it.
I was there a lot. They let me measure a lot of headphones. But we just got back from CanJam SoCal 2024. I'm here with Golden Sound and Resolve. We had a good time. We saw a lot of stuff. We heard a lot of things. And now we're going to talk about it, break it down, tell you guys what was good and bad at the show.
Yeah, so CanJam SoCal 2024, it's in the books. I wrote in my impressions, it's kind of like a good sneeze, you know? It's really satisfying. It's just like a lot of insanity for like a brief moment, and now it's over. And we have some thoughts on things.
But you guys actually got to listen to things?
Well, that's a good point. Funny you should mention. Just overall, like, how was this show for you guys in comparison to other CanJams?
Busy.
I imagine you were slammed the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the main thing was we launched the Aperio Golden Sound Edition, which had about an hour-long line the entire weekend, which was nice in that lots of people wanted to hear it, but also not so nice in that people had to wait an hour, and there was always a lot of people crowded around the booth. So hopefully at future shows might be a little bit more accessible. But it was also just a really busy show.
There were a few exciting things that happened during this show. I mean, aside from just like, you know, big products being released by individual manufacturers, we got Joshua Valor to come. That was fun. It's like the first time he's been to a trade show in 6 years.
What has been the worst thing that you have experienced for this entire trip? I want to get, like, what are you most disappointed by in life right now?
Doug's BO.
We've confirmed he's not AI generated. He is a real person. And he's a very nice real person as well. It was really cool being able to hang out with Josh for the first time.
I just had a horrible realization. The last time that Joshua Valor went to a show was Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, and right after that, they just shut the event down forever.
Oh no! So Josh is he is the Doombringer.
We'll see what happens. I feel like CanJam's gonna survive, but yeah, I mean, if he does, he said he'd come back in 6 years. I got to bring around my iPod Ultra. That was really fun to try out a whole bunch of things, and there were many things to try, some of which from not a known manufacturer or anything like that, but from a very popular Redditor that we're all friends with. I'm here with the legend himself, Pud. You brought a bunch of toys to the show for us to try out and for people to try out here at our booth.
Each one is testing a different acoustic phenomena. Like this is the polycule, so like you can put them on, but like your friend can listen, so 3 people can sort of listen.
Oh yeah, here we gotta try those out. You know,
just get it like that.
Oh, that's actually pretty ergonomic.
Yeah, kind of works.
It's a very human design.
Now those, definitely worst sounding thing you will hear at CanJam all weekend, guaranteed. It sounds like if you played a telephone call through an AM radio.
Gosh, let me get a quick shot of these guys.
But these do something interesting. You feel the puff of air. Every bass note, it feels like somebody's blowing on your ear.
Pud, I greatly appreciate you. Where can people check out all of your designs?
Pud.com.
Pud.com. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Pud's creations were there. We were actually demoing them at the Headphones.com booth. That's actually kind of the theme for me with this CanJam, was trying out the creations of friends, trying out creations of like non-big name manufacturers. Juan was there with the Sierra. You had Skedra with his monstrosity, which was awesome, by the way. The SJY guy was there with his closed back. So there were a bunch of folks who were,
HFA.
Yeah.
There's a lot of 3D printed. Like specifically, there's a lot of SLS headphones at the show.
I mean, to me, that was the big theme of this show was, just seeing what the creations of the community are and seeing people's sort of brands kind of take off, I guess. Because I imagine that, like 5 years down the road, we'll be looking back and be like, oh, this is kind of where they got started, which is a cool sort of thought process. At least I hope that's how it turns out for many of these folks.
That ETA on-ear, it's like an on-ear that you actually like.
The O2, yeah, I didn't hate. Well, I mean, all on-ears are. They shouldn't exist. But that was one that I did like, and so I guess, yeah, if I'm to use an on-ear, it's probably going to be that one.
I tried both of their on-ears at the show, and both of them put Grado to shame.
Exactly. Yeah, like I remember when I first listened to that O2, I think, we were sitting at the bar at the end of the Saturday night. A guy just he said, "You got to try these," and I, super skeptical of these types of on-ear things. It doesn't look like much. I put it on, and I think like my immediate reaction was like, "F me, that's good." As far as like the headphones that were new that got announced at the show, or maybe were announced a little bit before the show, what did you guys get a chance to try? I mean, apart from the Golden Sound Aperio.
I have a couple listed here, but the Audio-Technica 3000s, it's either the AD3000X or ADX3000, one of those two. But it's a AD, it's in the 3000 series, or it's a 3000 in the AD series. And it was like, it felt a little bit warmer than the others, but still has that bright treble feature that they all have. Comfort on it, stellar. I wish they would pad the top, because they kind of go for this approach where like it's so light we're not going to put padding on top, so you just get a bar on your head. I would really like it if there was a pad on top. Then there was the, from another big manufacturer, the new Audeze CRBN 2, which actually I heard a lot of mixed feelings on from various people. I think everyone who tried it on a tube amp felt like it was way too warm.
That was kind of my feeling. I tried it on the LTA Z10e, and yeah, it was just too mid-bassy for me. But I have heard a lot of people that tried it on multiple sources say that it changed very significantly. So a lot of it could have just been that particular pairing. E-stats do genuinely change quite a bit more than normal headphones do on normal amps. So that's a possible factor.
So I went upstairs and I heard it on the Mjolnir Audio. It was the Carbon, I think it was.
So you hit the carbon?
Well, isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, I know, but the Carbon 2 on the Carbon? Never mind.
Yes. Oh, wow, yeah, I didn't even realize that. In the room up there on that amp, it sounded like Carbon 1, but with a little more bass extension and a touch more upper treble and a touch less emphasis on 3 kilohertz, which actually sounded really nice.
That's good.
Yeah, and it doesn't crinkle as much on the head. It doesn't seal the same. They're putting ports on it and trying to get better bass extension out of it by just, trying to hit lower frequencies. And I was like, so you are running lower tensioning on the diaphragm than the first one? He was like, oh, yeah. So it's really cool. And I kind of like picked it up and I was holding it. And I was like, this is like, it's lighter than an LCD. It's still got some heft to it. I was like, what is this, like 480 grams? He was like, yeah, no, that's exactly 480 grams. I was like, yeah, my hands are calibrated.
You got 2 scales on your hands.
Actually, I was talking to, so we eventually ended up doing a game when I'd bring headphones to the B&K booth where I would tell him where all the different features I thought there were. Like, I think there's a dip here, I think there's a peak here, all these things, and he would measure it.
The B&K guy, actually, that was one of the highlights. Chatting with him was one of the highlights of the show for me. We were just sort of nerding out about the system. I don't want to give too much away from their plans because I don't know if any of it's public, but like, they are very much aware of, like the desire for additional ears to measure headphones on, rather than just the one that is supplied with the B&K 5128. And just speaking of that, I mean, the other highlight, of course, was Blaine's talk. I don't think you guys got a chance to go to that, but I did record it, and so I will be posting that somewhere. Basically, that was his opportunity to roast everybody who is doing graphs, because as of right now, the paradigm that we exist in for headphone measurements is wrong, or it's incomplete. He gave a very good kind of like comprehensive picture of that, where we have been, the errors that we've made along the way, where we are now, and then where we can eventually go in the future.
And speaking of measurements and science, we also went to get our heads scanned.
So we are here at UC Irvine with
Dr. Craig Stark.
And we are here to do some ear scans.
Yeah, so we're going to be heading on in just a minute here and taking MRI scans. We're at the Facility for Imaging and Brain Research, or FIBR, and we have a dedicated research MRI scanner here, a Siemens 3T Prisma scanner that we're going to be using to take pictures of everybody's ear and ear canal.
We confirmed that there are no worms in our brains, and all the holes that are there are the ones that are supposed to be there. And whilst we were doing that, we also got full scans of our inner ears and full heads and outer ears as well. And I think there's going to be some fun stuff coming from that later. That was quite a fun opportunity, and one that we're very thankful to have.
Yeah, big shout outs to Craig, Dr. Craig Stark, who was giving up his time to basically take us through that. It's really weird to see people's brains, or some of the visualizations were even kind of creepy. Like, there was one where it was like just half of listener's face missing. It's like, I can see into half of your face, and I can see your eye sockets. That's really gross.
Yeah, actually, there was something really cool there that I didn't expect. Last year, there was a guy I was talking to at the booth. He was trying the super early version of Omega that I had. and he was talking to me about how much fun it is to like do 3D printing, and we're talking about different printing types like SLS and MJF and all those things. And he was saying he was kind of doing some DIY things here and there. And this year, someone told me about this new headphone. I sat down and I'm like, oh my God, you were here last year. You're that guy. It was the guy who was just talking about 3D printing DIY stuff, and now he was there with an actual headphone. So this is Nick. I'm at Hifi For All. I actually met you last year here at CanJam. We talked a lot about 3D printing, and I was really surprised. I just walked up to your booth and saw you here again, and now you're exhibiting a headphone. So tell me all about it. What's going on? This thing is super cool.
Yeah, thanks. So good to see you again, obviously, at CanJam. And I developed a headphone over the last year that leverages, some new technologies in manufacturing, but also just the tuning system is a multi-stage resonator, ring resonator array, and it allows you to basically swap out different sound profiles.
He's doing it's the same driver as the Omega. It's an SLS chassis. It looks really good. He did an array that's interlockable and interchangeable of Helmholtz resonators that you can just twist lock out and put in a different array of resonators.
That's pretty neat. I don't think, is there anyone else that's ever done that?
No, not to my knowledge, not at all.
For other headphones that were there that people might know about or be wondering about, was there anything that's coming out that, or just like anything that you guys didn't get a chance to hear that this show allowed you to hear?
There was one which I really wanted to try but didn't get a chance to, unfortunately, but I think you did, and you said that you were pretty impressed by it, which was the Hifiman HE1000 Unveiled.
I have that actually right here. They let me take it with me after the show, and because I wanted to measure it as well. And it measures well. It measures, I would say this is one of my favorite of the egg-shaped Hifimans. I still don't like the Unveiled concept because I don't like naked drivers to the world. But this one actually is less anxiety-inducing because it's like the spacing for the magnets is tighter. So there's less chance of stuff going between them. There's not as much surface area of the diaphragm being exposed to the world. So again, as we've said in the past, don't go angle grinding with one of these around because, magnets and metal stuff is not a good combination. As far as the sound, this is a little bit not as bright as the other egg-shaped Hifiman, so it's not as bright as the Aria or the HE1000. I find though that there is still a little bit of excess 4 kilohertz for me at least, which gives the treble a bit of sort of like a kind of, I borrow this term from Griffin, but it's a clenched kind of presentation. But the Unveiled platform, what they've done well here is they've managed to make it so that typical Hifiman dip in the mid-range, like that 1.5 kilohertz dip, is much lessened. And they did the same thing with the Susvara Unveiled as well. So those traits are there with this too. I think that's definitely a step up. So I think this is just like more HE1000, but better.
I'm quite excited to get that one in. I'm also excited because, again, I didn't get a chance to hear it at the show, even though it was there. The Headphone 2 GT.
That one was really interesting. There were 2 different pads for it. One that was kind of a suede-like pad, and the other that was more like a kind of traditional leather one. And they sounded pretty different to me. I didn't love the suede pad. It was kind of darker, warmer. The leather-like pad was definitely a lot more kind of Harman-esque.
It's definitely, the whole thing is definitely a lot more Harman-esque, but it does have a strong mid-bass presence that's going to be, I think, not for everybody. Like some people might like that because it does kind of give it that extra bass, again, like what Harman has as well. But it almost reminds me a little bit of like the Empyrean 2. That's the kind of sound signature it has, and I imagine it will measure similarly when the measurements eventually come out. I didn't get a chance to try it with the other alternative pads, but my sense of it is that I much prefer the overall tonal balance over the original Headphone 2, because the original Headphone 2 is quite kind of laid back there for the ear gain, and this brings a lot of that clarity back. So it's a lot more clarity focused, kind of more similar to the original in that region, just with extra mid bass to kind of balance that. That's my sense of it. I will say, for stuff that I like, the standout things for me from that show, one of them was definitely Skedra's new headphone project that he's working on.
Holy bass.
It is the most unhinged and ridiculous concept for a headphone. And he'd been sending me like images of the measurements that he'd taken with it, and so I was talking with him about that, over the course of its development. But this was the first chance I actually had to hear it. Every single time that he would send me a measurement or send me a picture or whatever, my reply would be, "This is cursed. This is ridiculous. This is unhinged." And sure enough, that's what it was in practice. but it was actually really, really good. So
It's unhinged, but it's not bad.
yeah, it's 2 glass drivers, so it's using dual dynamic drivers, big ones, and also a filter. It's an open back headphone, so it's using an electrical filter to give it an additional bass boost. And so this is like bass to the absolute max. It's funny because he had it there right next to the Aris, and it's like, no, this is the real bass violence headphone right here. Like this, it's called the Draupnir, I think. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but my goodness, was it ever slammy and impactful. And yeah, it takes your head off. That's how I would describe it.
The cool thing about that electrical filter as well is that he's made it so under the pad there's just a little switch. You can just turn it on and off. That filter's only on if you want it to be, which if you're buying a bass violence headphone, you probably do want it to be. But it's nice that that option is built in as well.
Yeah, and the cool thing again about this is that the bass shelf wasn't at like 400 hertz or something ridiculous, right? Like it was under 200 hertz for where the bass shelf started. Still, I would prefer to be even lower than this because I like my mids to be really clear. And you know, as soon as you boost the bass by that much, it's going to have an impact on the mid range. But like this was so much more tastefully done than other headphones that have, you know, the claim to massive bass, right? This one was a lot better. Now, I don't know what the final version of this is going to look like or what the price is going to be. I have no idea, but that was a crazy experience.
This is kind of the headphone that Aris should have been.
Well, okay, the thing is though, like Aris is a collab. The Draupnir is like Skedra just like being a mad scientist, you know?
Yeah, true. He made the whole thing in his like bedroom out of forged carbon fiber in his bedroom.
Yeah, it's not going to be in the same price range as Eris. It's going to be quite a bit more just because, I mean, just that forged carbon alone does genuinely cost quite a lot. But it's pretty cool to see where this has ended up.
We also got a chance to listen to the Raal Immanis again.
And we measured it this time.
We did measure it this time.
That's one of the headphones of all time.
It is. It is. This is one of those headphones where it's like no matter what you say about it, you're going to get, you know, crucified online for it. But I don't care. I'm going to say it anyways. This is a headphone that I don't like that much. It's just not for me. We were listening to it and we were trying to consider like what is it about this headphone that people are so enamored with. And, you know, we came to the conclusion that maybe it's because of that more forward character at like 1 kilohertz that it has, which is a little bit reminiscent of some of the Stax headphones. So it does some of that kind of mid-range presentation. But, you know, for me, the big issue is there's a massive treble resonance somewhere in the treble. It took me out of it, you know, and I couldn't get past that.
Yeah, that peak's going to be quite listener dependent, I guess. I mean, some people may straight up not hear it, depending on what their HRTF is.
Well, it could shift, yeah.
Yeah, it could shift a lot. The biggest issue for me was just the fact that it's got a big 2 kilohertz dip, which makes it sound super spacious. It's a very big sounding headphone, but then also that does mess with vocal timbre quite a bit, especially certain male vocals. And so that for me was the main issue with it.
Blaine hated it. He went on a long tirade about how much he didn't like that headphone.
This makes me hate listening to songs I like. This sucks.
That means it's good. What do you mean? Don't you know
No,
that's how audio
Blaine, that
file
just means
headphones
your
work?
music is bad.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think Blaine was not held back.
You know, for some people, you know, they really enjoy it. And here's the thing, I genuinely believe that people who are people who are having great experiences with it and they're saying it's amazing, I believe them. It's just I didn't get that, and so it's not what I'm looking for.
I totally get why people love it. I mean, for me, I think it is a good headphone. It's one that I enjoy listening to. I like it, I think, quite a bit more than you do. It's just that for me, there was a lot of discussion originally when it was sort of first being demoed and stuff around it being a supposedly perfect headphone, which doesn't exist. And I think that it's because of a lot of the colorations it has that people are going, wow, this is doing some stuff I really like. Whereas other people, including myself, are going, that's not quite for me. I enjoy listening to it and I think it's a good headphone. It's just a lot of that is because of some of the colorations it has. In the same way that I like 1266. 1266 is a headphone I really, really enjoy, but it's because it's doing some stuff weird, not because it's a normal sounding headphone, because it really isn't.
A lot of folks are saying this is like a perfectly neutral headphone, and I don't get that. That's where I am not able to get there.
Well, people will say that about just about anything.
It's true, I suppose.
There was also the new Questyle upgrade from the M15. They have the M18i, which I thought was really, really cool. I'm kind of excited to try that out eventually. But it was like a Questyle M15, but with way more power and way more features. And slightly larger.
M15 is like my favorite thing to take to audio shows because it's so just easy to be like, oh, I can just use my phone and I don't need to worry about all the DAP stuff. It's just, and I can run high, power requirement headphones off of it, no problem, which is great.
Yeah, I actually use the Questyle CMA 18p as my sort of show source. It's a little bit bigger than the M15, but it just means that, again, you can just shove it into your phone and run quite power-hungry headphones as well. Questyle makes some great portable stuff.
Oh, there was one more really cool thing at Questyle I forgot to mention, and I wouldn't have noticed it because it was so tiny. It was a little tiny dongle, really tiny dongle, and it didn't plug into anything else. It was just like, it almost looked like just a power cord or power port cover for a phone. It makes it so people with iPhones can actually use high-resolution Bluetooth codecs. It's a Bluetooth transmitter made for people who are using like any phone that isn't going to support like, aptX and LDAC and all that stuff. So you can just plug it up to the bottom of your phone, this tiny little thing, it powers off your phone, and then you actually can get high-resolution Bluetooth codecs on your device, which is super sick because a lot of people have iPhones.
That's pretty cool.
Do you think you can do that with computers?
You could plug it up to a computer.
Love that. I want to get my hands on that because I'm using the one from Creative right now, the BTW5, and it's fine, but it's not as good as I think that idea could be. Did you guys get a chance to try the SJY Horizon Closed?
Yes. Yeah, he did a really good job with the closed back. I'm not in love with the aesthetics of it, but the comfort and the sound was like, whoa, this is a really good closed back.
Really good for closed back. I'm curious to get that one in and spend more time with it, but the initial impression was very positive. Again, I also don't know how much he's selling it for, but that could be
close to 1,000.
Okay, so it's in that more kind of high-end ballpark there.
Yeah, but like I'd say that's like one of the best closed backs that exists under maybe E3.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was going to say that. I don't like hyperbole, but that at the time that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, a question for you guys. Which of Pud's headphones did you guys like the best?
I mean, Old Thumpy was pretty cool, but just because it was such a big draw, like everyone just wanted to see it, I thought that was really neat.
Old Thumpy was really good fun. Put a bassy track on that, and it's hard not to grin. It's not the kind of headphone which you would use for daily listening, both for practical reasons and because that much bass is ridiculous. But it's a cool experience, and I'm happy that Pud brought them. Honestly, the Golden Sound headphones, which I've now got behind me, TSA was very confused by those. I'm surprised how normal those sound. Looking at them, they look like they should sound absolutely ridiculous, and they don't, which is kind of cool. I didn't specifically get to try these ones, but a lot of people said that the ones that look kind of like a Jekyll Float with the 4 different drivers in them apparently were just straight up solid headphones. Did any of you guys get to try those ones?
I did. So I was going to say, while Old Thumpy was the most fun thing, those I actually genuinely enjoyed listening to, and it felt like I was wearing a comfortable motorcycle helmet. But I was like, this has no right to be as good as it is, and yet here we are.
It was cool just having those headphones there, actually getting to see them and try them, in practice. Not just this meme that we enjoy on Reddit every once in a while. It was cool to actually, get a chance to try the actual product there and to chat with Pud as well. Yeah, he is exactly who you imagined he would be. It's great.
He's fantastic. He's fascinating to talk to. And definitely the highlight of the show for me was getting to try all of his fantastic creations.
Of course, there's all kinds of stuff that happens outside of the show as well, which is just fun times, hanging out with friends, getting to hang out with Zeos and bully him about the Eris. No, I'm just kidding. Getting a chance to hang out with Zeos and Juan and Mark Ryan from Super Review. Shoutouts to Mark Ryan. We got to do more stuff with him, but it's just so much fun to hang out with folks. Yeah, it's basically like, to me, it feels like, the chance I get to hang out with, other people who have the brainworms like I do. Maybe they don't show up on the MRI scan, but they're there. They're deeply ingrained.
They're definitely there. They're just hiding.
Exactly. Yeah. It's nice to hang out with other people who have the similar brainworms and just be super unhinged audio nerds. It's a good time.
Me, Douglas, and Josh actually also took what is now a little bit of a ritual for sort of my group of friends that stay together for SoCal. We took about a 2-hour drive down to San Diego to go to attempt to go to HEDD's, and found out that we went on the one day of the year that it is closed, which was sad.
Yeah, after we got to San Diego.
Sean Olive was also back giving another presentation. That one is, I believe, a published paper. There's a published paper on it that folks can find on the Audio Engineering Society. It was effectively 2 talks in one. The first one was a continuation of his research with IEMs and listener preference with IEMs. Turns out the conclusion of that was that he thinks maybe there is a good reason to reduce some of the treble energy for Harman IE. Reduce it in some spots and increase it in others, in the upper treble maybe. But the big takeaway from the IEM section was that people had similar preferences for very different tunings as long as the bass and treble were kept proportional. The Sound Guys target actually scored equivalently well to the Harman IE 2019, and those are very, very different. It's the same people. That's what surprised me, is that it wasn't like there's a group that loves Harman IE and there's a group that loves the JM1. Well, Sound Guys isn't that, but it's basically the same thing. It was that the same people rated both of those highly as long as the bass and treble were kind of proportional with one another. The second section there that he did was on a new method of adjustment study to test basically the merits of an ear gain filter. That's a nerdy thing. We don't need to go into that here, but yeah, basically it's just further research. But the big thing for me is that he said this at the end of his talk, that like this is largely something he's doing because he's interested in it, not because there's a particular need from Harman. As far as they're concerned, this research is basically finished, and he's not satisfied himself. He likes to go further, and so it's a great service to the community. We're lucky to have somebody like that who has the know-how to do some of these experiments, some of these listening experiments. Other than that, CanJams are a good time. They are a ridiculous time. You see people from all walks of the hobby.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, I think the big thing about CanJam isn't necessarily the gear. Again, a lot of this gear, we could hear it at home and get in things to review it and do all that stuff and try stuff and measure things. But the reason we go to CanJam is to interact with the people. I know this is something we say again and again and again, but that's really what CanJam is all about. And for a lot of people, it's about demoing gear, but for us specifically, it's about getting to interact with those people.
Yeah, and having people come up and say hi, and people, they come up and want to take photos and chat about, stuff. Tell me that I had a couple people tell me, "Oh, I disagree with you about this thing," and that's always awesome, right? I don't want people to be, afraid to voice their opinions in person. So it was great that some folks were doing that. In general, yeah, just great to see everybody, and it's a good time all around. Cameron, any closing thoughts?
I didn't fly all the way across the ocean just to try Audeze CRBN 2. It's because it's
You didn't?
Just such a good time. No, surprisingly. It's such a good time seeing everyone, hanging out with everyone, both in and out of the show. And SoCal in particular is the one that I look forward to all year round. It's absolutely fantastic. And if you are even considering going, go. Just do it. It's worth it 110%. And hopefully we will see you there next year.